Hello, 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 everyone. Good to see you again. Sorry, it's been a while since I posted last. I'm excited. I saw the last position in this game. I feel like this is going to be a very interesting one. So this is another episode of my series of analyzing games rated 800 to 1000. Let's see if there's anything we can learn from these games and any I don't know, fun tactics that have popped up. Okay, so we are watching from white side, I guess. I don't know if that's just random or if it just pops up as white every time. I really should look into that. Okay, probably help if I clicked on the right screen here. Okay, so we have an E4 opening. Like, I think every other episode so far in this series has been an E4 opening. It seems very common at this rating range. E4, E5. Okay, so common ideas are your Italian game, your Scotch, Gioco piano, that sort of thing. Um, okay, so he's going straight for. I think this is called the Napoleon, but the scholar's mate. So the idea is to come out here, usually to get this out there and just go for a quick mate. Now, if as soon as I see this move as black, the first thing I do is this knight comes out because the queen is also forking onto that pawn. So that could be kind of annoying to deal with. So defend the pawn first, then when the bishop comes out, so you do here, then bishop comes out. So now the attack is on this pawn. Then you can worry about this. The queen will dive back, again attacking this square. Then you can pull this knight out. And then presumably something exciting happens. Like, I don't know, maybe they do this. I don't know. Actually, usually they don't. Usually a knight, I think, comes out next. So you usually see something like this, then, I don't know. You can sometimes get that going, and you can kind of have some funky forks, some fun business. Anyway, we'll see what happens here. Okay, so starting there, giving up the pawn right away. Okay. And that's the problem with this, is now free rook. That's that's what you've got to watch out for. Is those are so sometimes it looks like they're attacking one thing, so this would have been a good response if that was the only thing they're attacking. But this middle pawn is kind of the secondary attack. That's the idea of the queen h5 opening. But the problem you can run into as well is this. No. So if you can defend, there isn't a really good way to defend this here. Sometimes you can trap the queen. So normally I'd say something like this. To defend here, but obviously you can't because of check. You can't put the bishop there because the knight would be hanging and the pawn would be hanging, so it doesn't look like you're gonna too easily trap. Okay, so what do? We're gonna defend. That's it sucks to lose your castling rights, I'll tell you that much. Okay, so white's probably pretty happy with themselves here, and I mean they should be. They got a rook and a pawn out the gate and blocked black's castling rights. That's what happens if you don't watch that pawn. That middle pawn is dangerous. Okay, but black is getting the quicker development, so who's gonna get this game won? Okay, so queen is gonna retreat. How do I feel about that square? It kind of blocks your knight from being able to develop naturally, so that's kind of sucky. I mean, you obviously don't have here, here, here. All are defended by other pieces. It might have made sense to, personally, I would have maybe considered here. That way you're threatening this pawn, and so you maintain the tempo while you're then able to develop more pieces while they spend time defending that pawn, probably doing something like this, and then expect this move to come out to counter-threaten the queen. So that's the other thing, is when you open the queen at the beginning of the game, a lot of the time they can advance pieces with tempo, so you're forced to jump your queen around while they get all their pieces into the game. So you end up being much slower to the fight if you open with your queen. Dangerous, dangerous way to start. Okay, so now we are, as previously mentioned, now they are coming after this pawn. So again, with tempo, you got to do something about it. Probably not a lot of good thoughts here. Here you're blocking in your knight. Here you're blocking in your bishop. Here you're just moving your queen again, so that's sucky. And again, if your queen were on this square, you'd be able to pull this knight out to defend that pawn. And then you could do other things, like get the bishop out, pull the pawn, and maybe kind of salvage the position. Okay, so, yep, there's another queen move. So far we have had, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 queen moves of the first 7 moves for white. So they have literally moved only their queen, basically, which is not good for the first 7 moves. You want to get other things involved in the game at this point, like black is managing. Okay, so now you can see the light squared bishop is involved, the knights are involved, and the bishop is sort of plugged out of the way because of that move. I mean, you might have been better off to push the black pawn farther, and then you can continue with the tension in the middle, your queen's defending, and then you have all of your pieces in. You could eventually, like if this pawn gets traded, you could get this bishop out, and then the queen can eventually make way for the rook to come in, and you can just hopefully start a winning attack before you notice that you're down a rook. Sometimes you can get away with that. Okay. So this was your opportunity to get another piece out. I mean, what does this move do? So it's going to weaken this square, so now the knight can go there. I mean, you can still kick it out, but it's a little bit harder now. You're not going to be as easily able to castle this side. Maybe you're trying to bring your rook in. You might be trying to prevent this, or I don't know, prevent black's knight from moving out of the way and the bishop getting in, but not too clear. Maybe you want to push this. I can see this happening. But then you have to sack a rook to get your queen in with check. And then you don't have a checkmating attack from there. Okay, so as suggested, the knight is here, and yeah, another queen move. So this one blocks in the bishop. At least you're getting back to relative safety. So black's doing a very good job of recovering after losing a rook. Sometimes people just like try and turtle up, but then you just go into piece trade. So white wants to trade a piece for a piece for a piece for a piece, and then at the end of the game they should be up a rook and a pawn and just be able to checkmate you. So that would be what white should be going for. But black's doing a pretty good job of trying to maintain kind of pressure, preventing white from actually being able to attack. Okay, so now watch the fork. You basically must move your queen here to protect this pawn and the queen. And then I would consider looking at moves like this to try and start kicking some of these pieces out. You might even be good to do that. Gain control of the center, get your bishop free, this bishop free, castle along. Good plans. Okay. So I would not recommend that because first of all, you got to look at all of the attacks. Are they going to be able to continue with this initiative? In this case, yes, they are. Right now, there's no threat on this pawn, so you're fine to leave it alone, and you're just leaving your queen out there to be attacked. Again, blocking the pawn so this bishop can't get into the game, and blocking this bishop so that it's going to have a hard time getting into the game. Really, you got to be focused on getting these pieces out and involved. Okay, so yeah, this is your next opportunity to get a piece out. That's kind of a strange move. I'm not really sure what. Presumably they want to get the queen out. So that's something that I do as well. When I see a move, I would say, what's the rationale behind it? Well, this is, okay, supports the knight. Yeah, I mean, you could have done that with this piece too. You could have moved it. I mean, but why weaken your structure so much unless you were just desperate to get your queen out and start just punching holes into things? Because again, this side, well, I mean, you could be relatively safe on this side with a king, although you have this pushed pawn, so on the dark squares you're sort of weak. Yeah, and you're not castling, obviously, you've moved. Yeah, you might be better off to push all of these pawns, come to think of it, with your king safety on this side. Just treat it like a short castle and start a pawn storm. Okay, so you just really don't like that knight, hey? At least this is kind of into the concept of that Giuoco piano I was talking about earlier. Where is it going to go? That's what you'll just do. So when I push this, where's it going to go? Probably here, here are the only options. If it moves out to here, then chances are we may see this, but that just weakens the structure too much. If here, oops, if back here, then I mean, it's got a good square to go right here, but so does that knight, so it might not make sense there. Hard to say. I would maybe end up over here. Okay, that's fair. So counterattack, that's a clever move too. So you realize you have a threat on your piece, but you know what? If they take it, then you're going to get a queen. So force them to move first. Say they can't move here or here because they're protected by the knight. So you have this, this, that, not that. So not a lot of good spaces. Your queen's slowly getting suffocated. Okay, and there's the fork. So I didn't even look too closely at this because actually I accidentally hit the next button, but yes, that's something you want to watch out for, especially when knights are involved. They're tricky about getting forks out. So you've basically just given him your queen now. At least you get a knight back. I would maybe take this way. No, I don't even know. Just rough all around. Because then what are you going to do with this bishop? It's just going to be looking at this pawn, which can't move. If black's smart, they just leave the pieces in front of this pawn here so that this one can't move, so that one can't move, so that this bishop cannot get out. So, I mean, you could do this to try and open up the rook, but again, that pawn would be ultimately hanging. Sucky position overall. Yeah, so you're going to be forced to do something like this, I bet. Yeah, do the trade, at least you get the open file. But again, trades now are in the favor of black. So if they trade down pieces, it's going to be queen versus rook, rook and knight? Yeah, queen versus rook, knight, and pawn, which is actually a pretty close material advantage. But I mean, sometimes, especially at the rating level of about around the 800-900, you feel the presence of the queen a lot more than you might feel a knight. Okay. That's fair. Keep the bishops on the board. I mean, like I said, you might have benefited from getting, first of all, that knight into a less advantageous square and trading down pieces and then starting another attack. But hard to say with the material being around this equal. Okay, so white's just going to keep right on with their attack. Sometimes when you see a move like this and you know they want you to take them, sometimes you're better off to just not let them. Just close it down, lock it down, or even, you know what, like let them take you, and then you know what, okay, so king there, take, then bring all the pieces down this file. They might actually help you out in the end. Good. So this acts sort of like an umbrella pawn now. Now this pawn is going to be very, very hard to target because how are they going to hit it? It's actually protecting you more than it's doing anything to black here. So we've got the knight coming out. Sometimes you just got to wear a pawn like a hat. Just love it. Little top hat there. Okay, so trade. That's advantageous for white because now they can push this pawn, threaten that pawn, push this one, and then we get more bishops out. We can get eventually the knight out. Eventually, they've moved their king, yeah, so we can't castle, but we could do this. We could castle by hand, they call it. Those are sort of the ideas, the plans that I would be making in this position here. Okay, so again, I would just take the middle. Yeah. I mean, not the worst. Okay. Yeah. Again, you need to get this pawn up. This was your opportunity. You could have pushed up more, got more pieces out. You would have had a very solid structure. Difficult for them to use their white squared bishop, and then you could have maybe consolidated your position a little bit better. Okay. Interesting. So a lot of things happening right there. First of all, if this bishop moves, that rook is toast because it sees right through it. So sometimes you can deflect it with a move like this. Obviously, they want you to take, but for what reason? Just because. So now you have the open file. It's going to be hard for, like it's going to some degree jeopardize your king safety. What's more jeopardizing the king safety is the fact that these two pawns have like completely blocked this. So it's like you're playing down a bishop and a knight here. You're just playing with two rooks against a rook, queen, and bishop, which is why development is so important. Actually, there's a saying that the first person to move their queen is the first person to lose it. So keep that in mind. I'm going to suggest that for you, white. Don't try not to play with your queen. That should be like your ace in the hole. You want to like do the battle with the like weaklings and let them skirmish about, and then only bring the queen out when you need to trump card something. And that's it. That's all. I mean, a lot of times, I mean, there are games that I've played where I think you play for like 15, 20 moves, you don't even move your queen at all, and you win because you can just have the looming threat of it moving in to attack, and they have to constantly be aware of that. So especially if you move it off to one side of the board, it weakens the opposite side of the board, your attack on that side. You know what I mean? So if you leave it in the middle, then you can kind of poke around it to whichever side, and then whichever one is going to maybe give you a little bit more play, you can just send your queen over there, and then again let your minor pieces do the attacking. Don't move your queen 1,000 times in the first 10 moves. Try not to, because we got to, what is it? One, I think we said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Did I count that one? 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. 9 times. 9 times in the first, like, 12 moves. That's a problem. That is also a problem. This here. So when you move a thing, yes, this is under attack. When you move it, like things with like bishops and rooks, you gotta like almost ignore pawns and pieces and think of what they look at on the other side. So like, for example, I would not want to move my rook here because I'd be thinking about when they push that pawn, all of a sudden my rook is under attack, this square changes. So in this case, the queen is looking through this pawn at that rook. The threat is not so much on your pawn. Like it exists there, yes. And I mean, you could easily defend it other ways, i.e. this, this. Like those all function to defend it. But moving it just means you're going to lose this and potentially more behind it. So, okay, not losing it, that's good. Now if I were black, I would be pushing this pawn because I'm looking at this and I say, okay, they don't have a lot of squares left that they can take. So for example, if you put it there, that pawn prevents the king from escaping this way, and then all of the squares around it are totally blocked in. Now, this is where a light squared bishop would be very useful. At that point, you could checkmate, or, well, you can't really easily get a knight in there. You could almost, there might be a cheater's way of doing it. But that's the idea. I would push this, limit the movement of the king. You know what, pin it down, have some fun with it. It also releases the tension for this black bishop here. Yeah. So don't just go for relentless checks. That would have been a good check maybe after this pawn was moved, because then you would have the additional option of being able to move your queen right next to it. Actually, that would then be a checkmate, because you would be able to take this. They could not move here. This would be all blocked by the queen. That would all be blocked by the queen. Would have been a checkmate. So, okay. Now again, you're forcing him out that way, which would have been prevented through this. Okay, just going after pawns, I suppose. That's fine. I mean, you could always come for this and that, because this bishop is pinned to that king. Oh, and white resigns from here. I guess because they see that black can take this and then just push a pawn all the way down to the end and make a queen. So there we have the end. So key kind of moments here. Black should have played a knight to defend rather than this. This is the right idea, and it would work if the queen had gone to that square. Because then when the bishop comes out, then you can worry about like blocking with the knight. Okay, so then that of course caused this problem. I mean, you also had this pawn hanging. You could have just taken that. Yeah, so that point, just go all the way back, dude. Like, don't put yourself in a position where you're going to get taken again. Even from here, you go to just another spot where things are getting threatened. So, off to this side would have been better. Allowing all of your pieces to develop. I would have tried to, like, after you've had a successful incursion like that, like, back off with your queen, get as many pieces out, and then just, like, make them feel that advantage that you have over them. Good development there, black. Yeah. That move I don't love, but I guess you're really keeping an eye on that, so that's fair. That's a good move. This, watch for the forks. So when you see those knights coming in and they're like eyeballing this, you know that's what they want, right? Like you know the whole time they're standing there that they're just looking at trying to take that. And that's why, again, this would have been better. Yes, you wouldn't have had the threat of the knight, but again, all of the pieces can come out. Yeah. I mean, if you look, these three pieces essentially don't move for the entire game. Actually, even that rook. So really, the white was playing with the queen, the bishop, and the knight. That's it. This whole game. And it's no wonder then why black would win, is you're playing with less than half your army. Use them. Okay, so that's it, everyone. I hope that was useful. Again, I'm going to reach out to these players, send them the links so that they can learn from these kind of concepts, and hopefully everyone can improve. Hope you enjoyed. Leave a comment. Please, please, please subscribe. And that's it. Thanks.